This is John for the Everyday Fan Sports. Today I have the pleasure of being on the beat with Georgina Corrick, softball player. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am great. Anytime I can talk softball, I'm in a really good mood.
I feel that way as well.
Exactly. So let's start in the beginning. I know you were born in England, but you moved to the United States at a very early age. But I read it or I listened to an interview where you have a really interesting story of how you got started in softball. Would you mind sharing that?
I mean, absolutely. I think you say interesting, I think embarrassing. But obviously I moved over to the States when I was about 3 months old. And both my parents born and raised in England. So they were definitely a little bit more along the soccer route, maybe rugby, maybe a little bit of cricket. But they wanted to try a lot of different things here in the US. So I got started in swimming and soccer and tennis and golf. I kind of really gave it all my best. And I sucked really bad at a lot of them. But fortunately, my dad, he's a tenacious guy. We used to share the newspaper in the mornings, and he would, hand me the sports section. Was like, "Do any of these look interesting?" And they actually had tryouts for a local rec team called the Englewood Bombers. And I went out there and I loved it. My dad got me, you go to Walmart and you get like the little pink bat, the little pink glove. We bought those and he and I would throw in the yard for, hours and hours on end, trying to keep track of how many times we wouldn't drop the ball. I was not very good at that either. But I really fell in love with it. And I think my dad really saw how much I enjoyed it and he was very happy and willing to, be kind of my soundboard for that. I definitely hit him in the shins quite a few times.
So then when do you think you really started to hit your stride and become, a really good player?
I think once I figured out that there was no way that I was going to be a catcher, um, I started getting a little bit better at things. I think probably when I was around 10 or 11, I was watching some of the older girls pitch and I thought it looked really cool. And so my dad again was very willing to kind of let me try it out. And I fell in love with pitching and I started doing it for my travel ball team. I started going to lessons and probably about 11 years old, I started realizing that this was something that not only was I getting a little bit better at it, but I really, really enjoyed it.
Now, do you think starting out as a catcher, does that help you at all in your pitching career?
Um, Maybe. I think it gives me a really, really good respect for my catchers. I know I wasn't catching anyone near to the caliber of my catchers now. But considering that I was back there in the Floridian heat with my little knee savers on, I definitely have a lot of respect for my catchers now in college because I recognize that I was not tough enough to stick it out, but they were much, much better than me.
And you went to South Florida. You were the
Mhm.
rookie of the year. You pitched a no hitter. You had the first pitch and triple crown in NCAA history. Amazing. Um, did any of that soak in when you were playing? Like as you with all the awards coming in, like were you able to appreciate it then, or did it take a while to like for the significance to hit you?
I think it took a second. I'm sure a lot of softball players feel this way as well. When they do very, very well, we sometimes think that we just got a little lucky. So much of our sport is a little bit of luck, and getting, by with a lot of things. The recruiting path often is just who you know, who you happen to have a really good game in front of. So I think after my knee surgery my sophomore year, I worked really, really hard to come back with kind of a new pitching style. I had to learn new mechanics to accommodate for my surgery. And that was the first year that I was named an All-American. And so it was very, very different for me because I'd never really been in the spotlight before. I'd not been a phenomenal travel ball player. I'd played international, but even that, as you might know, the international field sometimes doesn't get as much recognition as it's probably deserved. So that was the first time ever that other people were starting to notice that the thing that I loved doing, I was actually pretty good at. So each of the next following years, I had to try and combat that really hard because once someone knows who you are, they work a lot harder to compete against you. So I think for the next couple of years, I didn't really have the time to sit down and be like, oh, wow, look at what I've accomplished. I had to keep getting better because the people around me were forcing me to get better. So I think it wasn't until my senior year when I like threw my last game at the USF field, which happened to be a perfect game against the University of Houston, in front of my parents, and my dad was wearing my jersey. That was like a very storybook moment.
Wow.
I think I looked up and it really kind of hit me full force that my 5 years at college had really culminated in that. So it took a really long time to kind of sink in because I was just too busy to worry about it. I had other things to do.
Now you've pitched no hitter. You pitched perfect games. Um, do you feel any different going into the game or does it just depends on the specific game?
I was a very baseline gal. I didn't like to get too high, didn't like to get too low. I usually showed up with the same cup of coffee every single day. It was something that my coach in college was very good about reminding you to never play the name game, never play the jersey that you're competing against. If you were always throwing your best game, you will always have your best game. You will not just have the best game against that team. So it helped a lot in that I threw quite a few no hitters against higher level competition. I threw some no hitters against lower level competition. But to me, every approach was exactly the same. I was trying to get the batter out. And if I happened to throw a no hitter or a perfect game as that happened, that was entirely coincidental.
And what a way to end your college career, though. I mean,
It
I
was
guess
pretty
it'd be the
cool.
perfect way to end your college career. When you're on the field like that, your parents were in attendance. I don't know how big the stadium is, but could you hear individual people in the stands yelling, or is it all white
Um,
noise?
it's largely white noise. I think it's harder when your parents are British because while I could not usually hear individuals, I could usually hear my dad if he didn't like the umpire because he'd say, "You're rubbish! You're rubbish!" I was like, "Oh no, that one's mine." We had a pretty big stadium. We usually had a lot of people come out, so I didn't often um, notice anybody individually. But unfortunately, with British parents with British accents, sometimes they did stick out. We usually only when there was something that really needed it.
Well, he's got to support his little girl, of
He
course.
really, yeah. My dad, he was your ideal softball dad. He never really yelled too much. He didn't stand directly behind home plate. He knew the boundaries. He was good.
Now, you played last season in AUX, Athletes
Mhm.
Unlimited AUX. What were your thoughts going into the season? Because it's a totally different thing with the point system they have.
Mhm.
What were your thoughts going into it, and did your thoughts change during the season about specifically about the scoring and all that?
I thought it was really cool. It kind of made pitching feel more like a video game.
Okay.
Sometimes I like to live in the small moments. I told you, like, my only job is to get this batter out. I have to get this batter out. AUX really rewards that kind of approach for batters because in college, I could have thrown a full complete game. I could have come out on top against most of the hitters and maybe been beaten in one moment, right? And then at the end of the day, ultimately, I just take the loss. There's no pro to balance out that con. AUX was really cool because obviously you could win innings. I could win strikeouts. I could win an entire game, MVP points. There are so many more ways to be rewarded as a player because obviously now for Athletes Unlimited, you're pitching against some of the best of the best. I was very nervous because I realized that I came from a smaller school. I didn't play the caliber of competition that maybe some people thought that you need to play to be a professional athlete, but I went out and I competed. I finished fifth. It was really, really cool. It kind of validated me in that my approach for softball works, and then not only does my approach work, it actually really actively rewarded me in the Athletes Unlimited stage.
So, there was a short season. AUX is a short season. I think it's like 9 games in about 15 days or something like that. Does your approach to the season change because it's so compact and like you really don't have time for like a bad game?
Maybe a little bit. I think I'm really fortunate in international play is already kind of that style where you train all year round to play for 6 days and every game matters. And that's kind of the mantra of Athletes Unlimited is every moment matters. So it didn't feel too uncomfortable for me because I've done international softball since I was 15. So it was one of those things that I often, pitchers in particular, don't feel like they have the privilege of having a bad day. So perhaps the pressure of AU wasn't too outlandish for me because that was kind of already the standard that I'd even had in college and then obviously carried through internationally. So I really love that style of play because I felt like it was very fast paced and very enjoyable. I think as I get older, I may learn to resent that and maybe hope for a couple more off days in between.
But you'll be back this season for AU, right? For
Yes, I've
AUX.
re-signed both of my contracts, so I'm doing Champ Series and AUX.
Are you doing both series? That's awesome because it's about 15 minutes from my place. You guys are playing in Rosemont. Have you ever been to the Chicago area before?
I never have, so I'm very excited.
Is there anything in particular you're looking aside from playing? It's a beautiful stadium, by the way.
Mhm.
But is there anything in particular you really looking forward to seeing in Chicago, or food or anything that it's on your list?
I mean, I have to take a selfie in the bean. I feel like that's something that everyone has to do. If I have to wait 45 minutes to do it, I'm going to do it. And I have recently started trying to collect more shoes, and I hear that there's some wonderful shoe stores in Chicago. So very excited for that. I'm just a walker too, so I kind of want to have the ability to go and wander around the city and live my best European lifestyle by just walking around everywhere.
Well, I can't help you with the shoes. I'm not much into shoes. I just get, Reeboks.
That's okay. I'm
But the
very new
beanie,
to it.
the beanie, you go like early morning on a Sunday, early morning on a Saturday, you got a great shot of nobody being around. And you get the sunrise coming up there. It's really beautiful.
I'll have to write that down.
Well, it's just a little travel tip.
I appreciate
So you
that.
are going to play. You are going to play the full season then for AU. Do you, in between seasons, there's maybe like 4 weeks. Do you go back home then, or do you just stay in the area?
No, so actually, I will be leaving pretty much straight from AUX over to Ireland. We'll actually
Wow,
train in England because I play for the Great Britain national team, and our WBSC, our Worlds, is during that break between AUX and AU. So I think AU planned it that way in particular because there's quite a number of girls that play for
sure.
Athletes Unlimited and Team USA. So I'm actually in a bracket with the USA national team, Team Australia, Team Ireland, I believe Chinese Taipei. We've got a pretty stacked competition for this summer. So I'm very excited for that.
Well, I'll be following that too. The more softball, the better. Now,
Exactly.
aside from a championship or no hitter, perfect game like that, what would be like one or two of your underrated or kind of under the radar highlights from your career?
I know I've been talking about international a lot. I take a lot of pride in obviously not only being from England myself, being a passport carrier and a citizen of the country. I love playing for GB. I've played for them since I was 15. And so we had an under 19s team that I competed for in Barcelona in 20, I want to say 2017 or 2018. And we medaled for the first time ever. We won our gold medal in Europeans. We ended up beating Italy, the Italian national team, which is a team that has carried programs into the Olympics, with my last year with the U19s team. And it was just one of those really, really cool moments where we were the underdog coming into that tournament. I think we were seated perhaps second to last or third from last. And we went undefeated through the entire tournament. We beat the Czech Republic, we beat the Netherlands, we beat Italy, and we ended up coming out on top of it. So getting that gold medal at Europeans in the
Wow,
U19s. And my dad he bought the game on CD and he's
of
got it
course.
like sitting in his office somewhere. My mom still has all of the pictures and all of her decked out GB outfits where they've got the flag across their cheeks. It was one of those really cool moments that I was already a medalist before I ever came into college. And I still think even having 5 incredible years at the University of South Florida, one of my coolest moments was before I ever even got into college.
Wow, wow. Will your parents make the trip out to Rosemont at all?
I believe they will. Yeah, I know. If not, I'll
Awesome.
buy them a flight. I'll put them on a flight.
Awesome. It'd be great to meet him. One last question about AU. They all the athletes play for a cause, which I think is one of the coolest parts of the league. Part of your bonus for points goes to the charity. Have you decided on your charity of choice?
I have my charity right now. I'm still working to get it finalized because it is a very small charity. I had a teammate at the University of South Florida named Alexis Buckman who got diagnosed with a glioblastoma, brain cancer, about 2 years ago. And so the foundation that she works with is called the Fighter Foundation. It works with people with brain cancer who are fighting it every single day. The founder lost his wife to brain cancer a couple years back. And so I'm working to get that foundation as my foundation approved so that 50% of all of my funds can go back to Bucky. I love her. I'm so passionate about trying to do everything I can. She is one of the strongest people I know. And she is fighting brain cancer harder than anybody I've ever met. So I'm really, really proud of her and I'm really excited to be playing for her this summer.
A tremendous cause. That's amazing.
Mhm.
One last silly question before I end this. I also heard that you're a shark enthusiast, or you want to be a shark enthusiast.
I'm a strong shark enthusiast.
So I have to ask you, what exactly, like, where does that go in the future?
Well, for now, I'm loving being a professional softball player. That's definitely more my dream than it's ever been. But I did do my undergraduate in marine biology. I did my master's in global sustainability. Ever since I was a little girl, I grew up on the coast of Florida down in Englewood, and I watched the beaches kind of get deteriorated over time. and I fell in love with sharks. I think that the fact that they're older than trees is incredible, and the fact that we as human beings have been around for such a small margin of time and place so many things in danger. I would love, after I have lived a very full and prestigious, perhaps, softball career, to take any of the money and the fame and anything that I've been able to accumulate and start giving back in that way. So I'm scuba certified. I love doing all those things. I think perhaps going into shark research and doing something along the lines of conservation will be probably my passion after softball.
Well, we don't want to see you retire anytime soon, but I'll give you another tip. The Johngy Shed Aquarium in Chicago on Museum Campus is amazing. I'm
I
sure
have
they have some sharks
indeed been
there.
looking at that.
So I'm sure you will visit there.
Mhm.
Before I let you go, and I really appreciate your time. Before I let you go, tell everybody where they could follow you online if you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. So my Instagram handle is, fortunately, my full government name, Georgina Corrick. My Twitter handle at George Corrick. Those are really my two most active socials. I'm not really a TikToker, but I think that if you really want to follow along with Athletes Unlimited, obviously following AU Sports is probably the best way to do it. But if you want to follow me in particular, my Twitter and my Instagram are very available for you guys.
Well, I'll be following you. I am already following you. I will follow you in Rosebud. I've got front row seats. You'll hear me screaming for you, screaming for all the players. I love
Put on a
softball.
British accent, then I'll definitely hear you.
Oh, well, I'll have to work on that. I'll, listen to some
That's okay.
tapes or
We're both
something.
practicing things going to Rosebud.
But you will hear me. I'll be out there, and I'm looking forward to meeting you because obviously I haven't yet, but I will. So until then, thank you very much. I wish you good luck in the season, and you'll definitely see me out there.
That's awesome. Thank you, John. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Take care.
You too. Bye bye.